وقال الله تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال تعالى يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبعث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به وأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا وقال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. Even God himself couldn't sink this ship. Astaghfirullah. This is a quote that somebody said about a famous ship that many of us know about called the RMS Titanic. And as many of us know, this ship did indeed sink after being struck by an iceberg over 100 years ago in 1912. And while the Titanic, and more so the crash and its sinking, is something that has stood in the public mind for over a century, it recently came back to the forefront in the news because a small submersible, a small ship, went down to try and look at the wreckage of the Titanic, and it imploded on its way down. And the focus of the world, social media, the news, the water cooler talk everywhere, all of this was about what happened to that ship and the fate of its crew. And ultimately they passed away, including two of our Muslim brothers, may Allah grant them Jannah. But as is typical with humans, and especially now in this age of social media, not every message about them was about concern. In fact, many people expressed judgment about the hubris, the pride of the people involved, or the price they paid for the voyage, or the risks that they took. And people often expressed a lack of sympathy. And many people made jokes about it. And I think this incident offers us a good basis to talk about something we all have to be aware of, which is pride. So what is pride? So it's still June, and it's a little bit dangerous to mention that word. May Allah protect us. But what the pride we're talking about today is the emotion of pride and the disease of the heart, which in Arabic is called kibr. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that no one who has the weight of a seed of arrogance in his heart will enter paradise. So a man said, but a man likes to have nice clothes and nice shoes. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, verily Allah is beautiful and he loves beauty. Arrogance is to disregard the truth and to look down upon people. So pride is a major danger because pride can start as something small, something we don't notice, and eventually can become stronger and then take over our mindset, take over our heart, and eventually lead us down a dark path. And pride is something that started even before we were here as humans. And Allah Azza wa Jal, he tells us when Allah was talking to Iblis, قَالَ مَا مَنَكَ أَلَا تَسْجُدَ إِذْ أَمَرْتُكَ قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. So Allah asked, talking to Iblis, what prevented you from prostrating when I commanded you? And Iblis replied, I am better than he is. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay. So Allah Azza wa Jal, he created Adam alayhi salam, and then he asked the angels to prostrate to him, and he also asked Iblis to prostrate to him. Yet Iblis refused, and the reason he refused is because he thought he was better, because he was created from fire, and Adam was created from clay. So instead of focusing on the fact that Adam was actually honored by Allah Azza wa Jal, Iblis had pride in his origins, and he used that to refuse the divine command. So as a result of this, Iblis lost any hope for acquiring Allah's mercy. And it's interesting, right? Because Iblis thought he was better than Adam because he was created by fire. But fire has a lot of negative qualities: nastiness, recklessness, burning. People are often considered hot-tempered. Meanwhile, clay or mud can often have good qualities. It's the source of where plants grow. It can be calm, it can be cooling, have the qualities of patience, the qualities of assurance. So Iblis was basing his superiority or perceived superiority on being made of fire, whereas clay has a lot more potentially positive qualities. And this is a scary lesson for all of us, because how many times do we see people who are prideful for certain things? their ethnicity, or their wealth, or their social status. And how many of these things are based on a faulty premise? People believe this is what makes them better in this world. And they focus on pride in where they're from and not pride in what really matters, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And sometimes pride can be very obvious. So someone who flaunts their blessings in a way that puts credit on themselves or does it to show off. For example, they post on social media about all their gains at the gym, or their fancy houses, or their big vacations, or whatever it may be. Right? People who are overly happy with what they have done, and people who want to be praised even for what they haven't done. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions this in the Quran. And He said, "La tasbanna alladina yafrahuna bima ataw ma yuhibbuna an yamhadu bima la yafalu, wa la tasbannahum bima fadatihim min al-adab, wa lahum adabun alim." Do not let those who rejoice in their misdeeds and love to take credit for what they have not done think they will escape torment. They will suffer a painful punishment. So this verse from Surah Al Imran was revealed in relation to the people of the book, but there's a lesson in it for all of us. If people do good deeds, seeking to be praised, seeking that recognition, that pride, even the best of deeds can become blameworthy. So we always have to be cognizant. We always have to keep in mind what we're doing, because the seed of pride is something that starts small but can grow inside of us. And when it comes to pride, we have to be very aware of the obvious pride, right? Being proud of our blessings, being wanting to be praised. And in the second khutbah, we'll talk a little bit about ways we can avoid and help distance ourselves from pride. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about a more subtle, a more less common form of pride that we may not even realize. And that's also where we prop ourselves up compared to others, but in ways that may not be as obvious. And I started talking about the Titanic and the submersible, the ship that went down that got destroyed. And people, talking about how they had no sympathy for these people. And many of us may have heard comments like that, like, it's okay, they're rich. Or, oh man, they paid $250,000 for these seats, so they died, whatever. But let's take a step back, right? These people are humans, but they're people just like us. And people, we always love to make people that are not us seem like other, right? They could be rich, or they're immigrants, or they're liberals, or they're the MAGA crowd, or whatever it may be. We divide people based on race, religion, ethnicity, social status, and more. And all this does is really cause more enmity. It causes more conflict and more destruction within our communities and within humanity overall. So thinking ourselves better because we're rich is very obvious, right? People flaunt their wealth and look down on others who are poor. But the reverse can also be true. Someone can also be prideful because they think they're better because they're not rich and they didn't spend $250,000 on a seat to go see the Titanic, or didn't do this or didn't do that. And that itself can be a form of pride. And like shaitan, that's basing pride on a poor analogy, right? Wealth or social status, that's the same as holding someone higher based on fire or clay, like shaitan did, right? Whatever it is, that small seed of pride, which is based on something that has no real value, can grow inside us. And if we consider ourselves to be better than anyone for any reason, whether we're the ones who are rich or the ones who are not as rich, or the ones who are tall, the ones who are short, the ones who are of one ethnicity or the other ethnicity, whatever it may be, it's a dangerous step to take. So this more subtle, this less common type of pride is something we also have to be mindful of. And it's something we may not even realize that we're thinking and internalizing and actually acting on. Maybe something in the back of our head that we just don't even realize. So inshallah, this will help us bring that to the forefront and remind ourselves so we can correct ourselves. Anytime we see we see ourselves as better than anyone else, for whatever reason, then we have to correct that within ourselves. But there are things that the deen says is actually permissible to be prideful for, and that's a kind of healthy pride. So what is healthy pride in our deen? So if we think about pride, right, a lot of it comes from our desire as humans to want to compete, right? People want to compete in all kinds of things, different competitions. People want to compete in academics. They want to compete in the Olympics and be the fastest runner or the fastest swimmer or whatever it may be, right? It's part of human nature, and it's part of how Allah created us. But Allah Azza wa Jal, in His mercy, He also gave us a way to use that desire to compete in a way that is pleasing to Him. For instance, the Prophet ﷺ, he said there's a type of pride that is loved by Allah Azza wa Jal. And the type of pride that Allah loves is someone in battle or in charity. Meaning, for example, you can imagine two armies are facing off against each other, and you see, someone who is strong and he's like walking very arrogantly and proudly and showing his strength, and they're showing the strength in the Muslim army to try and instill fear in the opponents and try and make them seem strong, right? Try to make the Muslim ummah strong. with the right intention, that's a very kind of pride that Allah loves, right? Because it's giving strength to the ummah, and it's doing it for a reason and a cause that's pleasing to Him. Same for charity, right? We often, sit through masjid fundraisers, especially during Ramadan, and we see people, giving 100 and then 200 and 300, right? And some people, want to give more for the sake of Allah, right? So as long as we're competing in that sense as well, trying to give more and more out of what we have and out of what Allah has blessed us for His sake, and we're doing it with the right intention, again, that is another good source of pride. But if we're doing any of these things to just show off to other people and say, oh, I want people to think I'm generous or people to think I'm strong, then that can be a negative. So we always have to keep our intention in check. And ultimately, the ultimate basis of pride, again, it's not our race or our wealth or anything like that, but it's taqwa. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, O people, verily your Lord is one and your Father is one. Verily there is no superiority over Arab over non-Arab, or of a non-Arab over an Arab, or of a red man over a black man, or of a black man over a red man, except in terms of taqwa. So this is what truly differentiates us, the level of taqwa that we have. So even then, if we find ourselves, thinking that we're more pious than somebody else, like, oh, I pray tahajjud all night, every night. I go to all 5 prayers in the masjid. I give half my wealth in charity every paycheck. If we're doing this to prop ourselves up and think that, oh, I'm better than all the other Muslims out there, then that's not pleasing, right? That's negative. But if we're doing it seeking Allah's will and Allah's mercy and His pleasure, then that's something that's good, right? And that's the kind of thing that we should be using as a basis of our pride, which is taqwa, ultimately being conscious of Allah and doing things that are pleasing to Him. So to summarize, pride overall is something we have to be mindful, be wary of as Muslims. The consequences of pride, right, risking our entry into Jannah, is something that we should all be alert of in ourselves, our families, our communities, our brothers and our sisters. When pride leads to arrogance, when it leads to hurting others, when it hurts to losing sight of the pleasure of Allah, then that is a path to great danger. But when pride is healthy and we're doing things that are seeking Allah's pleasure, then we should strive for that. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us all to be among those who strive towards healthy pride and avoid the types of pride that will make Jannah impermissible for all of us. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So pride is a danger to ourselves, to how we interact with our communities, with our families, and most of all, it can be a danger to our deen, which is the most important thing to us in this dunya. So what are some ways that we can help avoid and distance ourselves from pride and being prideful? So first, we should know Allah, Azza wa Jal. If we truly internalize and understand what Allah's names are, what His attributes are, if you understand His power and His might over us, that will help keep us in check. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He gave us the ability to do what we do. And He has the ability to take it all away. So just like that submersible, right? The ship that went down to see the Titanic. I think that same ship went down maybe around 12 times to see the Titanic and came back up and everyone was safe. And Allah made that possible for them. But on this 13th trip, right, Allah took it away in an instant and caused the ship to get destroyed and everyone inside. Right? It was gone in a snap. And many of us may have experienced in our own lives how we've lost someone just like that. Someone had a heart attack or a stroke and it's suddenly gone. Or, we come home from work, we go the next day and we're fired. And we lost our job, we don't know, we could start worrying about money. Maybe our house burned down and all of a sudden we lost everything that we had. Everything we have in this world can be gone in a snap, just like that submarine, just like that submersible. If we keep that in mind and we realize we have no power over the things that we have and the blessings we have, and all the power comes from Allah, then there's nothing to be prideful for, because nothing is coming from us. And we should use that to humble ourselves. Second, we have to remember that we are human like everyone else. Right? We all have blessings from Allah. We all have blessings and we all have faults. And no one is better than anyone else, again, except in taqwa. So no matter how great we think we are, we can never be, for example, as tall as a mountain, as Allah tells us. And He says in the Quran, وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّكَ لَا تُخْرِقَ الْأَرْضَ وَلَن تَبْلُغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. And do not walk on the earth arrogantly. Surely you can neither crack the earth nor stretch to the height of the mountains. So the word that Allah uses here for arrogance, He used the word mara, which means, it can mean many things. Excessive joy, but can also mean arrogance in walking or thinking highly of oneself. So you can see how learning Arabic can really give a lot of depth to the words in the Quran. May Allah allow us all to learn Arabic and understand and appreciate the Quran. But in the context of this ayah, Allah is using that word to mean showing off and thinking too highly of oneself. And it's obviously used in a very negative context, right? It's a blameworthy trait to have. And Allah is specifically instructing us not to fall into these behaviors. If we look at some of the renowned people of the past, we can see how Allah Azza wa Jal has caused them to lose what made them so special and so high among the people in the first place. For example, many of us may know an actor called Christopher Reeves, and he played a character called Superman, who was a superhero who could fly and had super strength and super speed and all this kind of stuff. And he was the face of this character for decades and decades in the public eye. Yet this actor was riding a horse one day in a rodeo or something, and he fell, he got paralyzed, and years later, as a result of this, he passed away. So Allah caused this man who played such a superhuman character to eventually, lose the thing that made him so special, right? His ability to walk, and eventually cause him to pass away. And we've seen this in many different forms, right? The most intelligent person can lose all of their intellect and get afflicted with something like dementia. Or the most strong athlete, for example, Muhammad Ali, right? He can eventually become weakened by something like Parkinson's. May Allah grant him Jannah. So we all have to use this as a reminder, right? Every blessing that we feel prideful about is from Allah, and it can go away just as quickly. We should also remember and keep in mind that arrogance is something that Allah does not like. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us that in the Quran, He tells us that Allah does not like whoever is arrogant or boastful. Another way to keep us away from pride is to grow closer to the Quran. And reading the Quran, trying to understand the meanings, these will help us be more humble as long as we have the right intention. And Allah tells us in the Quran, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَا يَزِدُ الظَّالِمُونَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. We send down the Quran as a healing and a mercy for the believers, but it only increases the wrongdoers in loss. So if we have the right intention, the Quran will be a mercy for us, right? It's a way for us to heal. So just as the doctor heals the mind or heals the body from different diseases with medicine, the Quran, with Allah's will and Allah's mercy, is a way to heal the diseases of the heart, things like self-conceit and showing off and anger, but also pride. And another thing that we can also do to gain a closeness to Allah and help really attain His mercy is giving charity, right? It helps ourselves, it helps others, it helps us erase sins, it helps us gain that closeness to Allah, helps us develop our taqwa, and as long as we're doing it with the right intention, it's a way for us to help distance ourselves from pride. Lastly, we have to remember that avoiding arrogance, and by doing so the opposite, being humble, which is what we want to be, is a pathway to Jannah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was sitting with his companions, and he ﷺ said, "May I not inform you about the inmates of paradise?" So they said, "Do this, of course." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Every humble person who is considered to be humble, if he were to adjure in the name of Allah, he would fulfill it." Then the Prophet ﷺ said, "May I not inform you about the denizens of hellfire?" And they said, "Yes." And he ﷺ said, "Every haughty, fat, and proud person." So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that the people of paradise are those who are humble, and the people of hell are the ones who are proud and arrogant. Right? May Allah make us among those who have that humility so we can enter Jannatul Firdaus. So these are hopefully some tips and some advice that can help us distance ourselves away from this disease of the heart called pride and help us to be more humble. So may Allah make us all among those who recognize the dangers of pride in ourselves. May He allow us all to be among those who remember Him, Azza wa Jal, to go closer to the book that He sent for us and aim for humility so we can enter Jannatul Firdaus with His mercy and His will. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma inna salaka jannah, Allahumma ajirna minan nar. Allahumma inna salaka jannah, Allahumma ajirna minan nar. Allahumma inna salaka jannah, Allahumma ajirna minan nar. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Rabbi zidna ilma, Rabbi zidna ilma, Rabbi zidna ilma. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin, kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim, innaka hamidun majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin, kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim, innaka hamidun majid. Wa aqim as-salah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
Make sure lines are straight, caps are closed. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Taqabbalallah minna wa minkum. Jazakallah khairan for our khatib for this khutbah. We just have a couple of announcements. So outside we have our peri-peri chicken, rice, and salad outside. It's $10 each. It's right in front of the Masjid Isa. So after Jummah, please get a platter for yourself. It's $10 each. As you know, Saturday, July 8th, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., we have our Eid Family Fun Day and Barbecue. So this will be July 8th from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. So we'll have foods, goodie bags, games. So please, please come over. Please come and enjoy the celebrations as well. As well as the same day of the Eid barbecue, we have a Mighty Ballers basketball competition. So those who want to register, we have a few spots left. So you can go to nycmuslimcenter.org/barbecue. And also you can pre-order food at NewYorkCityMuslimCenter.org/barbecue as well. Also today at 5:30 we have our early reading program for infants to 5-year-olds. And it's an early reading session, so if you're interested, you can go to nycmuslimcenter.org/ER. As well as next Saturday, July 8th, we have Saturday, July 8th, we have our support group for parents. So this is just to explain, with parenthood and other questions that you may have. You can go to nycmuslimcenter.org/SG to register for more information. As well as Wednesday, July 19th, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., we have a workshop for parents. And if you have some more information, if you want some more information or register, you can go to nycmuslimcenter.org/BW. As you know, school is over, so we have our summer fun and learning program from ages 5 to 12. This is starting July 10th and it lasts up till August 17th. We have a few seats left, so if you are interested in enrolling your child, please go to masjidisa.org/programs for more information. So we're hiring for a couple of positions. So we're hiring for masjid security. This is from the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and we have our our recommendations as well as qualifications that we have listed below. If you're interested, you could email your resume to programs@masjidisa.org, and we're also looking for a Quran teacher or assistant. Same times, Monday to Thursday, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And you could email at the same programs@masjidisa.org. And Jazakallah khairan for all your donations. We're almost there for the expansion of our New York City Muslim Center. Please donate at nycmuslimcenter.org/expansion. And last but not least, we have our July timings. So for Salat al-Fajr, it will be 4:50 a.m. Salat al-Dhuhr is 1:15. Salat al-Asr will be 5:15. Salat al-Maghrib is 5 minutes after Adhan. And Salat al-Isha will be 2 minutes after Adhan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.